Well, hello, good afternoon, everybody. Welcome back. Jiu-Jitsu 2000 here today. I'm back, and I hope you guys are doing wonderful. Today, you can see I have a bacon grease candle, and I have another container here. What I want to do today is I want to make a tallow candle, and I'm not going to use true tallow. I'm going to use muscle fat tallow, which comes from high fatty content hamburger meat. So you're probably wondering, well, what's wrong with the bacon grease candle? Why do you need to make one out of muscle fat tallow? The purpose of me making a candle today out of muscle fat tallow is because at room temperature, tallow, even if it comes from muscle fat, it's harder, it stays harder than bacon grease. Bacon grease is a form of lard, obviously because it comes from pork. So it doesn't stay hard enough. Now you can see here that this container that I'm going to use in this candle today is wider than the one that I used to make my bacon grease candle. You might be wondering about that. The purpose of this being wider is so that as the candle burns, it has more surface area so that it won't make the whole candle liquid. So I got a couple things here that I want to show you. I've got a little sieve here, okay, and then I also set a coffee filter in there. So I'm going to set that there like that, and I will pour my tallow through, and that filter will make it nice and clean going into this container. So here is my pot with the tallow. I've got my sieve here. So I'm just going to pour some of this right through that coffee filter. And it's nice and warm. And the good thing about this tallow being nice and warm is it will help it pass through that filter a little quicker because of it being nice and hot. So I'm just going to fill this guy up. You can see how pretty that looks. And just be patient, take your time. Now this tallow is nice and hot, so that's a good thing. If the tallow gets too cold, you'll actually lose your speed in which it goes through there. So look at that, that's a beautiful color. And this will turn almost completely white when it's all said and done. So this is really good stuff. Makes a nice candle. I've been using muscle fat tallow for my candles for a long time, and it works good. So you can see the flow rate is really good. I'm just filtering out any impurities or anything that might exist in the tallow. If you haven't seen my video on how I'm making muscle fat tallow, please make sure you're checking the channel. Hit that search and type in tallow, T-A-L-L-O-W, and you'll find how I'm making this tallow. I use ground beef, again like 73%, and then I boil my ground beef and then with water, of course, and then once I get the ground beef cooked, then I pour it through a sieve and with the water and everything, and I keep the ground beef behind, put that in whatever food I'm going to cook. And then of course at that point I have a water mixture that has tallow on the top of it. Now the wick that I'm going to use today is a wooden wick. So I have a little wick holder here. So it's just like that. It's a little piece of metal. You can buy these. And then I have a wooden wick that just slides right in the wick holder. You want to make sure that you don't go too deep, so that the wick, you don't want the wick to be underwater, so to speak. So I'm just going to drop that down in, and I'm going to look from the top down, and that looks good. And I will continue to put more tallow in. Obviously you can see that my wick is plenty long. So I'll put the tallow, you see I'm dripping the tallow right on top of the wick. The reason I do that is because I want the tallow to saturate the wick as much as possible. And these wooden wicks work extremely well in candles. And that's really all there is to it. Once I get all the tallow into this candle, then I just let it solidify. You know, maybe put it outside if it's cool outside, and if not, I'll just let it sit at room temperature, and over time it'll solidify. If you have a refrigerator, you could put it in the refrigerator. Just be careful when you grab the glass because this is a hot liquid. So I'm going to go ahead and let this cool, and then I'll see you again when it's solidified. All right, let's take a look. This candle has had a little bit of time to solidify. It's not completely solid, but it's still a little bit soft, but I think it's good enough for us to fire it up and let you guys take a look. So let's go ahead and light this wick. Now you can see that this wick is a little bit long. You can naturally trim that if you want, if you have a set of diagonal cutters, but you can also let it just burn down naturally, and it'll stop when it's at the right height. If you soak those wooden wicks overnight before you put them in a candle in vegetable oil, sometimes that helps the process a little bit. But that's really all there is to it, to making a tallow candle. As you can see, once that wick gets down to the right length, it just kind of does what it needs to do. And once it starts wicking, it'll make a nice little pool of melted tallow around the wick, and then it'll start really flowing very well. Now the wick here on the left, on the bacon grease candle, that wick is just made out of string. Okay, so it's just cotton string there. So I'll just let those burn a little bit and let that one on the right find itself. And sometimes when you make a brand new candle with a wooden wick, sometimes it takes a little while for it to start getting that wicking action, that capillary action going. But I think it's gonna do a really good job. If you have a regular wick, like what you're seeing on the bacon candle, you can also put that kind of a wick in your tallow candles. I just choose the wooden wick, and that would actually be a good option for the bacon candle, because without the wooden wick, well, I guess what I'm trying to say is on this bacon candle, sometimes that wick will fall over once it gets liquid like this. It doesn't stand up, and that's one of the reasons why I like those wooden wicks more. They stand up, they're firm, they're solid, they don't fall down. So it'll take it a little time to get going. I'm going to kick off this light here so you can see the flame a little bit better. Let me try this overhead and see what happens. How's that look? Wow, look at that. So if I back off the light a little bit, or back the camera out a little bit rather, you can see that the bacon grease is doing fantastic. And it's just a matter of time until that wooden wick gets to where it needs to be. Because they really are good wicks. It just takes them a little time to get that capillary action flowing. Once they do, they're fantastic. If you were ever in a survival situation, a candle like this can save your life, and it will last a long time. So folks, I want to say thank you today for joining me on this video on how to make a very simple tallow candle with a wooden wick for free. Tallow is a resource that you can collect, you can cook with it. There's so many uses that you can use tallow for. So with all that being said, folks, again, thank you so much for stopping by. I hope you have a beautiful day. We'll see you next time. Bye for now.